Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of the religions. Oh, how sweet of you to come in, Black Female Atheist and BigZebra.com. Thank you so much. We're continuing here with a extra heavy duty, high detergent, ultra literal, hyper literal translation of the Bible. My gosh, everyone has claimed everything worth claiming, and now you have to just exaggerate it. It's a hyper literal translation. Not using the colloquial words that the Hebrew people used, the Jews used, but instead going into the roots of those words and including that meaning instead. And what comes out is a coherent story containing no magic. Imagine that, no magic. Weird, right? I never could have believed in magic. I never did my whole life, and I don't now. There may be things I don't understand, but they're not magic. And the more that I do of this, the more that I see that it's just not describing what the Abrahamic religions are describing. But it's actually, I can't prove it in reality because it hasn't happened. You can't prove things that haven't happened yet, but I can show that there's potential for these things to happen. Perfectly plausible in reality, chemistry, physics, math, etc. like that. So welcome all, and we're going to just jump right in. I don't know if I'm going to continue backing up and reading the prior verse before moving forward at the beginning of each show from the last show. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing that. I'm thinking that if people watch these in consecutive order, that'd be kind of boring. But then without the continuous context, I think that I think you can cherry pick whatever you want and say it says whatever you want without a continuous context. So I'm going to do that, at least for now. I'll reconsider it later. Last time we went over the curse on women. That is Eve representing women in Genesis 3:16. And not a specific woman on the planet. It just cannot mean that when you start looking at all the attributes of Hava, Shava, Eve. You just can't assign it a singular person. But the word curse there actually just means promise. It doesn't have a negative or a positive connotation. To get that, you need context. And the context is that she learned things. She was motivated and motivated man. That is, women are the motivators of men. And I think on the whole, that's just true. I think men are hugely lazy. And if it wasn't for women and what we need to prove in order to be a viable mate, well, we wouldn't do much, I think. So the woman is the motivator. She is the one that's curious. She's the one that wants to investigate things that we haven't yet investigated. In fact, it's come recently to my attention through other people who know these sorts of things better than I do, that there was quite a few women involved in NASA, in the space program, in calculating flight parameters, especially early on when we didn't have computers that could do that sort of thing. And these women wrote new math in order to accomplish space flight, and were integral in our space flight, in our discovery of much of what we know today in the solar system, and they were never really credited. Recently, there was a movie that gave them some credit. I suppose there was some kind of a movie or a TV show or something, but just the same, they never got the credit they deserve. They are the motivators of man, and that is just on the whole true. But what women are promised here on leaving the garden being the entirety of the planet, not a place on the planet, and that's why they can't find it. If you read all of the words that describe the Garden of Eden, there's no denying it's talking about the whole planet. Phrases like spinning pearl, orbiting a light, where is clean water and clean air and pale building blocks. That means children, pale building blocks. So, all right. So moving on with that. So she's promised to have her pregnancies increased and bring forth children. And if you dig further in to this reference later, we'll get to that probably next episode, possibly this episode. It says that the children she'll be having will be strangers who are the apple of her eye. Think about that for just a moment. How could you be emotionally attached to someone you've never met? Well, what's indicated there is that it will be our great-grandmothers, great-grandfathers, great-greats, and great-great-great-greats, and all of that is who she'll be pregnant with, not by, with, so that those people can be born again, literally. And that's just isolation of genetic material and a viable ovum, recreating a specific human being, and that's science. It's not very many years ahead of where we are right now, in fact. All right, so moving on. And the governorship thing of men. If a woman is pregnant and very pregnant, she may need some help with some things. And to be a governor doesn't exclude the idea of being a servant to that person. In fact, it's intrinsically part of being a governor is to be a servant. That's the whole idea of it. So what it's actually talking about here is how men are going to need to help women folk who are pregnant, not by those men, and be a governor to them. It doesn't say rule over them. Rule is the wrong idea completely. And how that got crept into the King James, well, all I can say is somehow men ended up in charge, and men are sexist pigs on average. And the further you go back in history, probably the worse it is. Moving on to 3:17. So to Adam, that means the animal with emotion in its face, or the animal with the ability to have a face that is red like the red clay of the earth. Jehovah's angels said, because you have listened to the encouragement of your women, by the way, that's a good thing, and have eaten and been nourished of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you will not eat of it. This you will not eat of it, I know it was a few episodes ago, but will not can be taken two ways. It can be a declaration of righteousness, that is saying you don't have the right to do something, and it can mean you don't have the ability to do something. For instance, there's nothing wrong with me using the sentence, you will not kick me off of my own show. That's a denial of right. I'm saying I have more right than you. However, if I say you will not pick up a full-size car using only your physical body, that's just a statement of fact. You can't do it. So there's nothing wrong with saying will not eat of it, meaning you're not capable of, which is what the entirety of the Bible says. We don't understand the difference between good and evil deeply. We don't know all the intricacies of that. And we do not have that knowledge because we have not been able to eat of it. But because you have now eaten of it, that is, you have now learned the difference between good and evil. And as the serpent says, will become as gods. And that's a truth confirmed soon in this text, that it is like that. It's not a lie. That is not where the serpent lies. Cursed is the ground here for your sake. That is, the earth won't produce for you. This is very reminiscent of, well, we're going to run into this soon in Cain and Abel as well. I'll just say that. We'll see this again. But in work, sweat of your brow, you will have to travail or work to eat. And what you eat will be from soil all the days of your life. So here, man and woman are leaving the earth. They now have the knowledge of good and evil, but Adam's going to have to eat food grown in soil, but soil not of this earth. This is one of the reasons that I'm saying that the Bible demands that our kind, human being, have done this before on other planets. Human beings fully realized right now that some call angels. Also, thorns and thistles alone will this planet produce for you, but you will eat the herb of the field. Well, that sounds contradictory because herbs are not briars, but this earth will only produce briars. And actually, by the time you get through all of the Bible, it won't even be able to produce briars for a very, very, very long time because it's severely overheated. But by the sweat of your brow you will eat bread when you return to the lands you were taken out of. Now, if you recall, Adam was made and placed in the garden eastward in Eden. So he was made somewhere else. So that claim there is that Homo sapien on this planet did not originate from the planet itself, but was outside of the garden completely and placed there. So if we came from some other place, they would be, of course, claiming that that is what they would call in this text heaven. And then to return to that, the place they were taken out of would be returning to heaven. That's the ascension. That's taking Adam and Eve out of the garden. And I found this very, very interesting. Where the English, it reads dust of the earth. The original words are pulverized debris. And in context, that pulverized debris comes from Adam. And he will go back to the place of his origins, and the place of the origin of that debris you will return. That is, go back to Adam. So it can't be referring to Adam, a singular being, and saying Adam goes back to Adam. That would make absolutely no sense. But this Adam here, the second time, should be capitalized, meaning a specific being, a singular person, whereas before it has to mean a group. So the emotional animal called his wife Shavah, or Eve, because women will be the mothers of all living, that is, in heaven. Well, how else do you expect people to get there? How else would you expect the promised land to be filled and conquered if we don't have children to fill it? Then it would never become full unless it was full right away from the start. And that wouldn't make sense. I even know of Christians who assign value to the idea that Jews inherit this planet eternally and Christians inherit heaven eternally, so that is the Christian promised land. And then they think we're going to multiply and fill the promised land. How? I don't know. I guess they haven't thought about it. So to Eve and Adam gave Jehovah angels proper clothes of coats of skins and clothed them. Of course, this is a spiritual clothing. That is telling them the full truth. This is something I very much look forward to, is knowing what exactly is going on in the universe, multiverse, cosmos, whatever you want to say. But knowing the full truth of all things is a very interesting proposition to me. Let me check with you guys real quick here because I was on a separate screen. Oh, peace and respect to Sadie Marie and also B. Thank you very, very much for coming by. I am having a very pleasant Sunday. Thank you very much, Sadie. And I trust you are as well. Got to see B earlier today. We hung out for a minute. That was pretty cool. I meant that expressively, not literally 1 minute. So here is a reiteration of a quote by the serpent. And this is saying that what the serpent said in that part of the text was true in reality. It's verified here. When Christians say that the lie of the serpent, which it doesn't even mean a snake, it means snake nebula. And that's why it's interesting and tempting to us. But when they say that the serpent lied about eating from the tree of good and evil, that's not true. It's verified right here. The Jehovah angel said, look, mankind has, affirmative, become as one of us, angels or gods, knowing good and evil. Okay, so it's verified that was not a lie. And now he also need, and the King James leaves that word also right there out. Now he also need only put forward his hand and take also of the tree of life, as he took of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, contextually, and eat and live forever. So having all knowledge and then not aging or regressing in age into perfect health, should you be something older than the perfect age, whatever that is, say somewhere between 27, 32, somewhere in there, I suppose. I don't know exactly what that would be. Is being offered. Now, this is something else that Christians have a tendency to ignore. If Adam and Eve, man and woman, are being punished for something, why are they offered eternal life? Throughout all of the Bible, the time that mankind and womankind is offered eternal life is upon ascension. The same time they're offered all knowledge of good and evil. So how can someone see this and say this is not the point of ascension off of the planet? I don't understand how they say that. It makes no sense. And if you do look at it that way, that makes the entirety of the rest of the Bible, well, wrong. Or this part's wrong, but you definitely have to choose one, because you can't have all knowledge restricted and exposed at the beginning. That doesn't make any sense, guys. Please spend a moment thinking about that. Then because of all of this, the Jehovah angels sent mankind forth from this earth to work in the land he was taken from. Sorry, that's repetitive. I'm not going to even go over that. I'm sure you get it. So Jehovah had driven out mankind where Jehovah had placed him, east of Eden. Jehovah had pointed out cherubims, that is the constellations, specifically the 12 cherubim, or the stars around the head of the Guadalupe, are the 12 signs of the Zodiac, and a flaming sword was there, which turned in all directions. I know I've gone over this too many times. You've already heard this joke. Please just allow everyone else to hear it. If I take a non-stretch item like a sword, and I wrapped it in cloth or something so it could absorb oil, and I catch it on fire so that it has flames, I have something that pivots at a singular point. It's not a pair of nunchaku where I can grab the other end of it. It's a sword. And turning it every way, if you have a non-stretch item turning every way from a singular pivot point, it creates a sphere. Obviously, there is a large flaming sphere object very close to the Garden of Eden. That is our sun, which turned in all directions, and it marked that. Its purpose was to them, what they used it for is that marked the direction of the tree of life. That is, the tree of life is also in the garden. That's because it's in you. We found it in the genome and encode projects, where we know that we have the ability to make more telomerase and become not immortal, eternal beings, not effectively not aging. And here's the interesting thing scientifically: because of different chemical compositions and reactions within stars, every star has its own light signature. That is, you could be anywhere in outer space and search for a certain pattern and find one particular star if you knew what the pattern of that star was. So it's completely reasonable to say a flaming sword which turned in all directions that marked the direction or the way of the tree of life. That is where we are. Let me check side chat real quick. Peace and respect, African humanist. And Mac, I can't remember if you were already here or if you just got here. Anyway, welcome. All right, if you guys want to throw some questions in the side chat for me, I'll try to address you or your particular brain individually, because there is no way to explain. I don't know. How could you ever make up a sentence that would work for everybody? So I'd rather know how you're thinking about it and address you separately, individually, and have respect for the brain that you are instead of assuming you are my brain. I think that would be a mistake. And until then, I'll go on. So in the English editions of the Bible, which these words don't exist in the original text, there was no story names in the original text, the most original text that we can find. But they called it Cain and Abel. So here's something very, very interesting. If you haven't heard me say this before, if you look up any of the Hebrew words, which in English they wrote it in Hebrew, and heck, I don't even know how to say that stuff. But if you look in the definitions of those Hebrew names of persons and places and objects, what you're going to find is those have actual meaning attached to them. They're not, it never means Fred. It never means that. In this case, the firstborn child, Cain, his name actually means a possession redeemed through transition. That's the direct and actual word and etymology of the word. Okay? And this adds into the story and gives the story clarity and depth and context. And without it, well, what does Cain mean? Well, it's some dude's name. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means nothing. But these stories are not designed that way. These stories are designed where the names add to the story and give you clarity. If you were a natural Hebrew-speaking person, you would have already known that. And perhaps, and this is a hypothesis of mine, this is what the Jews think they have over the Christians, that they know what these Jewish words mean. But guess what? We've got Blue Letter Bible and Strong's Exhaustive Concordance and 1,000 other things to reference. We know what the words mean. But here's the problem. When you apply the words in the story to the story, you can't maintain your Christian church. You can maintain your Christianity, but you can't maintain your church. It's going to defeat your church. It's going to defeat church fathers and what they had to say about the text. There's no way for those things to survive. And here's the first example. And by the way, this story is brilliant and true. This is what we actually go through, each and every one of us, at some point in our life. And that varies by person, of course. Of course, there has to be some way to start the story. Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived. And she bare Cain, which name means possession redeemed through transition. And Eve said, I have gotten a mature man from Jehovah, not just any kind of man. The word man right there means fully mature man. So in this phrase is talking about the potential of Cain and talking about what Cain can become, a fully mature man. Incidentally, in the English, when you read the word in the King James, when you read the word young man, that does not just mean young man. That means a young man who shakes his head and roars like a lion whelp, a young lion. That's what it means. And why that's there is because a young lion makes a lot of noise and never really does anything. It's an immature man. Whereas a real man doesn't need to roar and just goes out and gets the thing done, whatever the thing might be. She bore his brother Abel, which name means, listen closely to this within context, breath, like spirit, led astray by vanity. Abel means spirit or breath led astray by vanity. Okay, can we be self-absorbed and distracted and go nowhere due to vanity? Well, the African Humanist did a show exactly on a person like that today, a preacher who just wants more money. The guy is wearing fake eyelashes and eyeliner. Okay. All right, so moving on then. I'm shortening these very long translations of these names into singular things just for brevity. For the word Cain, I'm using transition, which is a culmination of the entirety of the idea. And for Abel, I'm going to be using the word vanity because that pretty well encapsulates the idea as well. Now, in process of time, it came to pass that transition brought from the fruit of the ground as an offering to Jehovah. That is material possessions, things that you get from the planet, fruit of the ground. And his brother Vanity also brought of the firstlings of his flock. You'll see that it's immediately talking about flesh here and the fat of it. And by the way, fat means strength of it, the best of it. All right. And Jehovah had respect for sacrificing vanity because of that offering. That is vanity, the idea of fleshliness, the idea of, and that's why these sacrifices of flesh and burning the flesh and getting rid of the flesh thing, destroying the flesh, is throughout all of this work. That context continues and is, I'm sure you're well aware, very, very repetitive. But to transition and his offering of material goods, Jehovah had no respect. Well, of course, what would a God want with your money? What would a God want with you donating your car to that God? It makes no sense. And transition, who was obviously confused, was very angry, and his countenance fell. That is, he's grimacing. He ain't looking so pretty. And angels said to transition, why are you angry, and why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto you will be your desire. You'll get what you want. You will get what you want. What you work for, you will get it. Okay? And you can rule over your desire. That is, your desires don't have to rule over you. So this is a transitioning where self-pride and vanity and fleshliness and worldliness are considered, which is exactly what happens next. So transition considered vanity his brother, and it came to pass that when they were in that wilderness of contemplation, in the Christian text, when it says wilderness, that means what wilderness means, a place you're not familiar with. So what it's saying here is not only is transition considering vanity, but it's also something he'd never done before. And in that time in the wilderness of contemplation, transition rose up against vanity, his brother, and slew him. Well, I hope that's what you all do. I think it's what I'm trying to do now. Let me check with... Okay, let me check with the side chat here. Nothing wrong with dolling yourself up to preach the word of the Lord. Peace and respect, Titan Uranus. Welcome. Thank you very much for dropping by. Yeah, Big Zebra. I know that I'm not Hebrew. I'm fairly sure that you are not of Hebrew descent either. So it doesn't seem right to a European thinking mind to say that representing fleshliness with flesh is the right way to go. I don't know what to tell you other than there are big differences between different societies. And apparently this is supposed to make sense to them that the sacrifice of flesh is like literally sacrificing fleshliness and worldliness and things like that. Okay? Which is why it has Cain giving the opposite, which is not okay, worldly goods. And to the European mind, an animal eats plants, it is taking from the earth. And plants eat the earth, that's taking from the earth. It's the same thing. I know there doesn't seem to be an obvious differentiation there to a European mind. For that, all I can tell you is this book was written for Jesus. And good luck to all the rest of us. Okay, cool. I'm glad that helps. See, that I think they kind of looked at like life as magical, even though we look at it very biological, chemical, physical. So to say something is alive like an animal is to say that it's kind of separate, above things that grow in the ground. It's a higher thing that is being sacrificed. And the Jehovah angels said to Transition, "Where is Vanity, your brother?" And Transition said, and I know the way the Christian mind has this memorized, it's actually not the words. Not I know not where my brother is. Am I my brother's keeper? It's more like I don't care anymore. Must I keep my brother? That is to say, okay, I'm a being who's going through a transition. I've realized my own vanity, my own pride. Do I have to keep that? Well, for goodness sakes, no, you don't have to keep that. Please let it go. And maybe we would have better community if we all did that. And Jehovah Angel said, "What have you done?" Well, you've transitioned. "The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. And now you are cursed," that is promised, "concerning this earth." Okay, so things have changed in the physical realm, which opened up her mouth to receive your brother's blood through your power. That is by his hand and on his own, with just a little bit of advice. The angels only pointed out something to him. He did it all himself. And that's true of us. We only need a root idea, and if we see value in it, if we think it's true, we can exercise those ideas ourselves and accomplish, well, sometimes amazing things. Yes, I know all of this is very poetic and colloquial. I understand that. The idea of its blood being soaked into the dirt, meaning it's dead, it's really dead, and it ain't coming back. And you're going to see this theme throughout the rest of the stories as well. That to realize you are a spiritual being having a physical experience, to let go of the physical that has become detached from what is material, and value higher things like your own and other people's spirit, that is the intrinsic them, is obviously a much greater thing than, I don't know, having a fancy car or what have you. Check what's going on with you guys. We have a zebra question. Could Abel be seen as a sacrifice to God from Cain, a sort of a spiteful sacrifice? I don't know about the spiteful part. Yes, throughout the sacrifices, it's not talking about killing turtle doves and stuff. It's really not. But this repetitive theme of giving up flesh to God, giving up fleshliness or the physicality is the point, which is why it's referred to as like a sweet savor to God, a great smell, and smoke rose up, and these are the prayers of saints and all of these things. The prayers of saints being that we become woke. That's the prayers of saints. That we realize that we're not just physical animals. We're not just that. We're much more than that. I don't know what you mean by spiteful sacrifice, a sort of spiteful sacrifice. God hated Cain's first sacrifice, so he said, "Hey, you're gonna love my next sacrifice." Okay, I get it now. No, absolutely. Oh, you like this guy? I'm going to kill your favorite son. No, that works for the Christians and the way that they read it. This big zebra, you're not even far off target. They just would object to the way that you'd said it. But the way the Christians explain the story, yes, you would be close on or perfectly correct. But that wouldn't explain why God protects Cain, why he prospers him in the land of Nod and all that we're about to get into. We're about to get into next week, because we have gone 35 minutes and I'm trying to keep these short. I don't want you guys to get, super, super bored with this, and it's going to be extremely repetitive. Like it's going to say the same thing. Well, thank you, Black female atheist. I didn't know I had an adorable laugh. Tony gets, Steve gets me. Tony gets me too on occasion, actually. Tony's a real funny guy too. Do you guys know each other? Titan Uranus and Big Zebra? You guys should chat. You're both brilliant and a little bit odd. You guys should chat sometime. Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there. If you guys want to throw a quick question in, I'd be honored to have a chance to attempt to answer it, and maybe it'll do something for your brain. Maybe it won't. I don't know how to say perfectly all things at all times. I have no idea. But I do care about you, and I am trying my very, very best. All right. Yeah, you guys should chat. Yeah. Really fond of both you guys. Seriously. I truly am. Okay. All right, guys. So that's it for this week. No, not this is not the regular scheduled Wednesday program. I just had a little brain fart right there. That's this for now. I'll do another one just as soon as I can. It's actually quite a lot of work to look into every single word in the most original text and the etymology of all those words, as well as doing the same for all textual variant, and coming up with the most concise modern English word for that idea. It's a lot of work, guys. I'm willing to do it. I think it's important. And ultimately, I think what this is going to reveal is that you guys are going to be just fine. Religiosity may be more damaging against ascension than it is helpful. Weirdly enough, religiosity, or at least what it is today, might be extremely harmful to those going to heaven. I know that sounds weird, but it seems to me you're better off as an agnostic than a religious person if your ideas of what God is trying to say are wrong, and objectively, showably wrong. Peace and respect, Wildheart. Thanks for dropping by. Appreciate you. Hi, everyone, and later. Yeah, later. Peace and respect to you all. Have a great day. Do what you can to spoil each other rotten in every way that you can, every chance that you get. I'm not saying dissolve your resources and give them to someone else, but anything that you have extra, strength of heart, strength of mind, strength of arm, strength of back, go out and use it to benefit each other. Be the friend that you wish you had. Till next time, I want you all to know I look forward very much to the day that we're all great friends. Peace.